Hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Chris Wright. I'm a landscape photographer working out of Granada, Spain. Now, this week sees a brand new release of the Nik Collection. That's Nik Collection 8 by DxO. Now, what is the Nik Collection? If you're not already familiar with it, it's a collection of 8 plugins that work across DxO products, that work across Affinity Photo, work across Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop, and also works as a standalone set of products. Now, within that set of products, there basically are 2 sets of 4. There's some plugins that function really as adaptive filters, so you can apply a ready-cooked look to your pictures, and you also have the ability to get under the covers and tweak the settings of those to create a brand new preset if you want, or simply to work on one picture. It's immensely powerful stuff. There are also a set of technical plugins. So to run down what we have, we've got color effects, silver effects, Viveza, and analog effects. So those are the basically plug-in and play sets. Now you can get, as I mentioned, under the covers with all of these and play with the settings, alter the tones, and there's a whole wealth of power under there. The more technical plugins, HDR effects. So HDR effects, it gives you the ability to stack photographs one on top of the other and to play with the different exposure settings, luminance settings, saturation settings within those exposures. So it's built on the traditional concept of HDR. There are 2 sharpening plugins. So there's pre-sharpening and there is post-sharpening, if you like, which is for print and dissemination onto the internet. These round out the DxO suite of sharpening tools, very well worth looking at. Probably worthy of a video in their own right. In fact, I have already made one, which I'll point to up here. It also includes the noise reduction define plugin. So that's the Nik Collection in a nutshell. The way that I'm going to approach it in this video, because Nik Collection works as a standalone and also across various photo processing applications, I'm going to start out demonstrating Nik Collection used from within DxO PhotoLab. And we're going to move on to demonstrate it being used with Affinity Photo and to demonstrate it being used with Adobe Photoshop. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush with this. A lot of the development effort in this new version of Nik Collection has gone into refining that integration with Photoshop, and the results are actually quite astounding. The end game in this, it seems to me, is to enable Photoshop users. If you're not already aware, Photoshop is an immensely technical application. The one thing that Photoshop does better than almost any other application on the planet currently is to use AI to power selections, and the meeting of Nik Collection with AI-powered selections is truly startling. You can really achieve a lot with this combination, but we'll leave that. That's going to happen at the end of the video, so if you're not using Photoshop, you don't have to watch the entire video all the way through. You'll be pleased to know. If you are using Photoshop, I'm sorry about that, but it's at the end of the video. You can go through quickly from the menu down below in the description if you want. Okay, without further ado, let's get into it. There's been some extensive remodeling of the Nik Collection itself, and this manifests in terms of improvements to the UI. The workspace has been decluttered and resorted to make it more usable and to make the general workflow more obvious. So what we're going to do initially is to have a look at those improvements, and we'll do that from PhotoLab. So first thing we do, we come here. This is the picture. So the issue with this picture is that the subject of the picture is blending in, even though the focus is different enough to make it stand out. It's the colours are not right, so it's blending in with the background too much, so it's not standing out at all. So what we want to do is we're going to use Nik Collection to get to grips with this. Let's have a look at some of the plugin Nik Color Effects, and that's opened the picture. Okay, so within Nik Color Effects we've got a bunch of presets and we've got a bunch of filters. So if we have a quick look at the way this is set up, you're basically moving left to right. So over here, this is your sort of workbench, so to speak, and we'll show you how that works. So presets are made up of multiple instances of filters, effectively. So we could, if we wanted, have a look at this one, and you see this space automatically fills up, and it tells you what filters you've got. So we've got a tonal contrast filter, we've got a brilliance warmth filter, and we've got a pro contrast filter, and each one of these has local adjustments attached to it. So we can apply a control point, a control line, a polygonal outline. These are masks, a luminosity mask, and a color mask. Now the color mask is really interesting in the context of Silver Efex Pro, and I'll show you why in a second or two. Each one of these comes with its own appropriate set of controls. So having applied this preset, we get a standard set here, and actually this isn't bad because this is already standing out a little bit more from the background, but we could do better with this, and the way that I would do that typically is to take this into another preset to do a little bit more processing. I can pull this one down and I can invoke, let's go for Viveza. So your image is saved with all the current edit before being sent to the new plugin. That's fine. We can actually get hold of some of the Viveza plugins directly from Color Efex, so that's something to bear in mind. And Viveza, we've got a reasonable amount of control, a lot more control actually over the colours. So if we go, let's have a control point around here. We'll pull this up. Okay, and this set of menus here is matched by this set of menus here. If we go to the control point here, these are the controls that will apply. Okay, so I can bring out my basic adjustments. A little bit more contrast, and increase the saturation a little, structure a little, and you can see we're gradually getting this to separate from the background. Okay, we could carry on, but you get the general idea. We'll go back to, we'll apply this, and this will take us back into PhotoLab, and if you give it a second, that's the picture. Okay, now what would be good here, and I'm sort of laying a bit of groundwork here for something we're going to show you later. Wouldn't it be great if we had a means of selecting this flower without selecting the one in the background? That way I could really get the separation. Okay, so that's a short overview of Nik Collection being used with DxO PhotoLab. So there's nothing radically new in there. The interface has been tidied up. I think the improvements to workflow are good. It's sensible. It's a progression. It works in the same way that it did last year, so you can navigate out from PhotoLab into the Nik Collection. You can navigate between Nik Collection plugins without going back to PhotoLab, and this is all good, works very effectively. Okay, let's have a quick look and see, because one of the things that DxO have been talking about is the connection and the fact that they support Affinity Photo. So let's have a quick look at that. Okay, so we're opening Affinity Photo, and there's a couple of quick adjustments to this raw file that I'd like to make before we do any proper work on it. So the black point, we want to open this up a little bit, not massively, but a little bit. That's better. Okay, so we'll take this, I mean this is far from the finished article, but let's just take it into the, so we'll go with develop on that. We're now opening the photo persona. Okay, so what we want to do here is take this out to the Nik Collection for further processing. So in order to do so, we need to highlight the layer that we're on, and then we go to filters, then we go to plugins, Nik Collection 8, and we'll go back to color effects. Okay, and here it's I'm just going to whiz quickly through this because this shows some of the presets. The preset we've chosen is the clarity preset. We've got tonal contrast filter, brilliance and warmth filter, local adjustments filter, pro contrast. Okay, and we can apply any of these in the context of control points, and we can tweak the settings on these to our heart's content. Okay, so we'll apply this. What I had wanted to do is to switch to a different plugin. I'm not seeing how that's possible here. Okay, so we apply this, and that takes us back to Affinity Photo. The one thing here is that you don't have half the control that you've got in Photoshop. This is effectively destructive editing because we've applied this now. It's non-destructive in the sense that I can go back to the original raw file and ditch all of the things, but there's no way of rolling this back in terms of layers or any stuff like that. Okay, so that's the integration with between Affinity Photo 2 and the Nik Collection. I have to say I'm disappointed in this. This is very rudimentary indeed. So really what you're limited to doing is outputting photograph from Affinity to the Nik Collection to one application, make the alterations you want, and then return it to Affinity Photo where it replaces the layer that you were already working on. So there's no ability to revisit that edit or to, you know, do anything like that. And I think that's a real missed opportunity. Hopefully, DxO will address that and bring a level of integration with Affinity that is somewhere on the path to matching the level of integration that we're about to see in Photoshop. Okay, so here we are in Adobe Photoshop 2025, and what I want to do here is to demonstrate how well integrated the Nik Collection has become with Photoshop. And the point here, this is really the perspective from the Photoshop user's point of view. So what Photoshop brings to the party is incredibly powerful AI-powered selection. And this capability allows us to get at the filters that are available in the Nik Collection and apply them very, very precisely to photographs in a way that is way, way quicker than you could do in Photoshop on its own. So there's a clear advantage here for Photoshop users. Let's have a quick look and see how this works. So here is my raw file. Now what I want to do is, the way filters work and masks work in Photoshop is very slightly different. You're exposed to much more of the works. So what I'm going to do is I make a copy of this layer. So I duplicate the layer, and I'm going to call this center flower. Now what I'm going to do is quickly demonstrate here that we can select this central piece in Photoshop and send it across to Color Efex Pro for processing. Okay, so I need to put a mask on this. So I'm going to do a selection, and I think we're going to do select and mask here. And this gives me the masking tools on the left. And I'm going to go for the object selection tool here. So all I need to do here is literally draw a line across this flower. Okay, and I'm going to go okay with that. And there we have the mask. Now, if we want to see that mask on its own, there it is. And you can see I didn't place the rectangle exactly, but it's chosen the right bits to add in. So you can see this outline, that outline was not within the rectangle, chosen that automatically. Okay, so now I've got the mask, and I'm going to send this across to Color Efex. And okay, so I can simply go open here, and I can select which masks in Photoshop I'm going to use. So I'm going to choose center flower here. If I had more than one mask, I could do select, deselect all, and I'm going to do open. Okay, and here we are in Color Efex. Now what I do is here I'm going to choose a filter. Just want to make this really obvious what's happening. So I'm going to go with clear view. Okay, and there's clear view, and if I do this, you can see clear view is applying across the whole image. So what I need to do is to import the mask, and there it is. Okay, so I can just do that. That's applied the mask, and I go back to my intensity, and you can see here it's applying simply to the one in the middle. Alright, so that's absolutely perfect. So we've got clear view. Now what I want to do is demonstrate this as a new layer with mask. Okay, I'm going to apply it, and this brings me back into Photoshop. This is my amended layer, but I've got a black mask on, so it's black conceals, white reveals. So I can paint in now using my white brush. There's the brush, there's my choice of colour for foreground, and I can paint in selectively this mask. Now it doesn't matter if I go outside, because the mask bounds the scope of the brush, so I can paint wherever I want. Okay, and if I just want to bring up a portion of my selection, then that's the way that I do it. I think you can see that how powerful this can be with a little imagination. I've chosen a very, very simple example here, and I'm not saying that within this example that would be impossible to do in Color Efex on its own. It would be possible with the judicious use of add and subtract tools, but I've just done this whole sequence and explained it in just over 6 minutes, so I'm impressed with the speed of this. Okay, so that was sending it over as something with a mask, right? Let's have a look and see what the alternatives are here. What I'm going to do here is something slightly different, because we might want to alter this, and so let's go with detail extractor. Again, pull in this mask. Okay, and let's now, okay, so we can see that we've got saturation. Okay, all right, so we can see that we've got a great deal that we can add in here. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there. That's perfectly rich enough. And this time I'm going to apply it as a smart object. Okay, so we'll apply that. And here I am back in thing, and this is now applied. Okay, what if I want to go back and alter it for whatever reason? I simply click within the smart object on the Nik Color Efex, and this works exactly as it did in the last thing. So I can actually come back to this and alter the way that this is working, and apply. And nothing has changed apart from the picture itself. And explore another option. So we'll go back into Color Efex, do my center flower, open. Okay, and in this one I'm going to do, let's try something, try the old favourite, Pro Contrast. Okay, raise the contrast, bit of dynamic contrast. Okay, and in this one we'll leave it as the whole layer. Don't need to import that mask. And I'm going to apply it as a new layer. Okay, and here is the new layer. Okay, I'm going to turn that off, and you can see the version of the picture from before. Yep. So there's no mask on this, and therefore this is hiding the layer underneath. If we turn that off, there's the layer underneath. So immensely powerful. Okay, so we're going to have a closer look at what's changed around silver effects, because there's been quite a lot of work done here. So starting in Photoshop, I'm not going to copy this. This is going to be a complete black and white conversion. So we'll simply invoke silver effects, and that will create its own layer. And looking at how this is arranged now, we've got more space here, and we can also see our original image here. Now, my workflow here in Silver Effects is a little bit more simple, the way that it's laid out. So my first thing is to choose the film type. Okay, and this basically is presets. So I'm going to go with that one to start with. And then here, I want to make some adjustments here, but unless I have fairly deep knowledge of black and white film, these are techniques that go back to black and white film developing and the use of filters to stop certain frequencies from coming through. So you can see here that if I manipulate the red filter, I can actually make quite a difference to this. But beyond this, I can use this as color image as a reference. So blue will give me the sky, and I can darken that sky down quite a bit, pulling that in. And of course, if you look at it in the picture here, you can see it moving from blue towards more yellowy tones. So I can alter those yellowy tones as well. And I think I want a bit of definition in here so I can see the name of that hotel. And that I think is good. So let's have a look at the rest of the filters. Add some toning to this, and this is the old so here I'm going to add a little bit just to warm it up ever so slightly, a little bit of sepia tone. Okay. Now what I want to do now is I want to preserve this layer, so I'm going to send that as a layer to Photoshop, and we'll see that in a little while. Okay. The next thing I want to do is to create a mask here in Silver Effects and send that back to Photoshop to reuse, just to demonstrate the possibilities of there. We'll go with, I think, selective tones. Okay, now what we're seeing here is that we can change things within there. So we can use, let's add a control polygon. And let's bring it across just where that shadow is. All right, so within that now, I can boost that independently of the other areas. Okay, so we've got a bit of a starker contrast going on in there. And here, I can send that back by ticking this box. So let's apply this. Okay, so here we are back in Silver Efex. So you'll notice then that this was the layer that I saved. That was my hidden layer. And within channels, I've got my polygon here, and that's the mask. Okay, now you might be thinking, what good is this mask doing saved as a channel? If I double click it, I can see that. But how do I actually get some sensible stuff going on with that? Well, that's simple. If we go back to the RGB channel, back to the layers, we can do load selection, and here we can choose whatever we want. So we can choose the channel there, and that brings us back our selection from that's now saved as the channel. And if we want to apply something to that, then we can do a new adjustment layer, and we want to, let's say, do some curves on that. Here's our curves, and you can see that's being applied just to that layer. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's a pretty long video, and that really completes the demonstration part of the new Nik Collection. Now, I've got to say, to add some context to this, I started life, in a sense, in Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop. So coming from the context of a Photoshop user, I think this is an amazing upgrade. The DxO have really done some good work in this integration, and this is, I think, going to open up a whole new vista, that being attached to Photoshop users. I think in that sense, I think if you're an Adobe user, I think this upgrade is absolutely nailed on, must have. I think if you don't use Nik Collection, I think this is a really compelling reason to buy it. It absolutely accelerates your workflow in Photoshop. And I think it's a very, Adobe did a lot of work with masks and filters in Lightroom. I think this absolutely beats it hands down, this combination of Photoshop and Nik Collection. Absolutely massive. If you're a DxO user, I think the enhancements in Silver Efex, I didn't get around to demonstrating it, but the use of the color masking in Silver Efex is actually quite important and quite neat. And what I'm going to do, in order to keep time banded on this, I'm going to do another video devoted entirely to Silver Efex, because a lot of work has gone on in Silver Efex. Okay, so that brings us to the end. I really hope this has been useful, guys. It's been a long video, but there has been a lot of work done in Nik Collection. And I think it's a worthy upgrade, even if you're not an Adobe user. I think there is stuff here that is really worth having. So more power to DxO, I think. Thanks a lot for watching. If you've enjoyed it, give us a tick down below, subscribe to the channel. There'll be a lot more videos on software of all different stripes, as well as on photography in general. So hopefully we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot, guys.